Hello, everybody, and welcome to Planet FPL, the world where everything revolves around Fantasy Premier League. My name's Suj.
My name is James.
I feel like, James, this is one of the most anticipated and important pods of the year so far, or the season so far, would you say? I feel the vibe in the community has been a little bit antsy about what to do next. I think a lot of people are in decision paralysis about whether to move off Spurs assets, whether to jump on City assets, and all of that kind of stuff. I feel like a lot of people are at a crossroads and need to make a decision, blue pill or red pill.
Yeah, go and listen to different podcasts.
Maybe white pill or sky blue pill. At the moment, it really feels like a lot of people have said to us through Twitter questions and that kind of thing, what do I do?
Well, that's why intentionally when I sent the tweet out for questions last night, I said none of that Man City stuff, because we'll cover off our opinion when we review Saturday's game and stuff, and Jamie Vardy and Son and Kane and all that. We'll cover the obvious during this podcast, no doubt about it.
Of course we will, and we'll have a little bit of fun along the way. Do you want to give everybody a rundown of your game week, James?
Yeah, my team's top of the league. Nothing else particularly matters to me at the moment. If I said I got 22 points again, I wouldn't give a shit. No, actually, it was a decent FPL game week, 77 minus 4. So take that all day long. And that's in spite having only 9 starters of my 11. Includes 2 1-point substitute appearances for Nico Williams and Phil Foden. A point each for the 2 Villa players, Martinez and Grealish. I won't be alone in that boat. I think anybody who wildcarded this week probably had 3 Villa players, I should imagine. Then it gets better. 14 points combined for Son and Kane. Assist for Raul Jimenez last night. Clean sheet and a bonus point for Charlie Taylor last night. 12 points from Andrew Robertson. 13 points from Dominic Calvert-Lewin. 22 points captain Bruno Fernandes.
Decent week. So your overall rank now, are you 3 million or so?
He's still 3.3 million behind some people.
Still a bit of a way behind. Having said that, you are now, I think, 31 points behind me.
Do you think shit makes me feel better?
And I am 2.1 million. So I think 30 points is over 1 million spots at the moment. You jump up. So another couple of good game weeks, and your rank might start with a 2 in it.
Fingers crossed. How was your game week?
My game week was okay, considering I don't own Dominic Calvert-Lewin or Bruno Fernandes. I think to come out of the game week with 63 points and a red arrow from 2.3 to 2.1 million, I think is okay. I think a green arrow, sorry.
I was going to say.
Yeah, sorry. Get my arrows mixed up. It's up to 2.1 million, I think is okay. But I think it was, I mean, this is FPL and football right now. It's a weekend, a roller coaster, right? So start off with the early kickoff. I captained Timo Werner. So it was a bit of a disappointment. I mean, to only get the assist when he could have had so much more, but didn't. But at the same time, I picked up 8 points off Reece James. And at that point, I'm telling myself, look, don't prejudge it. If Bruno blanks tonight, then Werner's 5 points suddenly looks really good. And we know already, right? Wait till the game week's over before you start deciding whether or not you've had a good return or bad return. But I should have hoped for more off Werner in the Newcastle game. So I'm fairly there or thereabouts. Then the Villa game, I've got Ross Barkley. So obviously instantly disappointed that Barkley's come off. At the end of the game, I'm thinking my only concern was whether Barkley could match Grealish. And he has matched Grealish, hasn't he, with a 1-pointer. So I'm thinking, all right, here we go. Thoroughly enjoyed the Spurs City game. I love good defensive performances and hard-working performances. And obviously Kane and Son getting me the points, so happy with that there as well. The Man United West Brom game as a non-Fernandes owner, let alone non-Fernandes captainer, was the roller coaster again of, he's missed it. Oh shit, he's taken it again. Oh, he scored. Oh well, here we go. Maximum bonus points and a penalty. Although I didn't jump on Twitter and start, moaning about how lucky everyone is. So I've had a couple of good games, a couple of bad games, and we're still only 4 games into the game week. Then Fulham Everton. I don't own DCL. 45 seconds in, I'm thinking, why don't I own this guy? Like, why have I held it off for so long?
You owned him at any point? I'm guessing you haven't.
I haven't owned him all season yet.
You're probably not going to now.
No, well, possibly not. But that game in the back of my mind, I was cheering on Fulham. I was like, any team with the word ham in their name's got to do well this week. Tottenham, Fulham, West Ham. But Fulham obviously didn't come back. Then really happy with the West Ham performance. Obviously, decent 2 foul points. And then didn't care about the Leeds Arsenal game because I didn't have any players playing. Having said that, like you, I had 2 players come off the bench this week, and one was Stuart Dallas. So happy with that. Andy Robertson, working his way from the I'm going to sell you this week into how am I ever going to sell you? I'm going to hold you for the rest of my life in the evening. Then we get on to Monday thinking, right, Zaha's going to turn your Charlie Taylor points into powder, mate. And what happens? Guy's got COVID. So it's caused me another transfer debate to be had. And then Wolves Southampton was very little interest for me. So I think a lot of FPL managers will be experiencing the same thing of ups and downs with every single game. And it's inevitable with the way that the fixtures are spread out. But I think we just got to, take the rough with the smooth and enjoy the football along the way, because there were some fantastic games over the weekend. I think Spurs City was the standout, but I thought Leeds were really good against Arsenal. How they didn't get anything out of that game was surprising. I obviously enjoyed watching West Ham win as well. And yeah, it was all right. 63, I think.
Really enjoyed Villa Brighton on Saturday. It was a cracking game.
I think 63 without Fernandes and Dominic Calvert-Lewin, I thought was a good result to come away with this week. Robertson, James, Sufal, Dallas, all clean sheets. Son, Kane and Werner were my point scorers.
Yeah, it feels like probably if you had a good week, you probably had something defensively looking across some teams. It's probably the differential between green and red. I know Mark Savins was talking about that on Black Box, saying that it's such a template at the moment that actually differential-wise, it may be that you need to look defensively to find something. And I put out a tweet yesterday asking for combined ownership on Kane, Son, Grealish, Calvert-Lewin and Fernandes. And I obviously say that as someone who's got all 5 and are all really highly owned, basically. So it's just under 5% owned 5. So as a combination, look, if they all do well for you, you're going to be hitting green arrows because combined, there's 95% that haven't got that combination. But it is certainly template has formed in an attacking sense. You'll get the odd movements where I think, for example, there'll be a little movement for probably Che Adams in the next week or two once people finally start clocking on, oh, this guy's got 38 points in 5 game weeks or so. This is good consistency. When we ask the question, how will he react to not being with Danny Ings? Well, he's taking on the mantle, isn't he? And he's getting the FPL return still. But otherwise, like you Grealish and the other guys I mentioned, now the movement from Manchester City, and a template's going to move slightly, but it feels like differential-wise, it's defensively. I agree with what Mark said.
Yeah, no doubt. Even looking at someone like Timo Werner, for example, he's still at 25%, which is good ownership for someone that in the FPL community probably has, on the Twitter community, let's call it, has probably quite low ownership. But there he's quite high ownership. I've ended up with 2 injuries in Barkley and Zaha, and I'm glad I rolled my free transfer into this week. So I've got room to maneuver here. I don't know if there's going to be many managers similar to me, but I suffer from decision paralysis, indecisiveness, and also it's doubled up with a desire not to transfer out players that have returned. Quite rightly, right? Timo Werner has been returning consistently. He's only blanked once in the last 5 or 6. Harry Kane hasn't blanked since the opening day of the season. So that's quite a lot of money to have in my front line in Werner and Kane, and it's why I only have Son and De Bruyne as power midfielders. I need to lose one of Werner or Kane to have enough money to get a Bruno Fernandes or a Salah or anyone else. But I don't want to sell these guys because they've been returning. I don't want to sell Son because he's been so consistent. So I feel like I'm almost caught here where I'm going to make no decision because I don't like selling players that are returning. and I don't know if I need to figure out a way of breaking that mindset.
With Barkley Zaha, can you get to one cheap and one Manchester City or not?
No, I have no money, James. So the cheapest player that I think is worth
when we say
going
one,
to,
we mean Sterling or KDB, basically.
yeah, I've got KDB already, so
okay, cool.
yeah. So I don't want the second. Looking around that midfield space, less than 5.5 million, there is naff all, James. Apart from say Maximan, and am I really going to go to him? I didn't think he was particularly good at the weekend.
I
so
could
no.
buy in a Newcastle attacking player. Mate.
There's only one midfielder at that 5.5 bracket that I could go to and would feel comfortable going to, and that's Stuart Armstrong. I don't mind going to him at 5.5 million. That lets me turn Zaha to Grealish. So Barkley down to Armstrong, Zaha to Grealish is the one move that I could potentially make.
Yeah, I wouldn't be. You've got two midfield issues, right?
Mm.
Listen, you got European football this week, mate. Like, sit tight.
Yeah.
It's not a lot for you to do
Nope.
till Thursday, Friday, and assess where you're at. I have made an early transfer.
Yep.
I've sold Charlie Taylor ahead of thank you, Charlie, for the return last night. Much appreciated. Didn't doubt you'd get that return for me last night. And I've bought Ruben Diaz of Manchester City. That gives me Diaz and Foden now in terms of some sort of coverage for Manchester City. I don't feel the desperation at the moment for De Bruyne or Sterling on what I'm watching. And again, what I saw on Saturday, admittedly, obviously Sterling didn't play many minutes in the game. And I also don't feel the desperation personally at the moment for Jamie Vardy, although I think he would be the outstanding choice for this coming game week at the moment. You've obviously got Fulham at home. I'm not in love with the next two that he's got, Sheffield United and Brighton, as many others may be. So I feel like I might be going in and then I'd be stuck. And again, then I can't shove the money from forward to midfield that I'd want to do. It would be wrong to sell Vardy before Sheffield United and Brighton, basically. I would then be stuck again. So I feel like I'm going to avoid it and accept this week might not be brilliant. Those who listen to my streams will know as well. I think this is a great fixture for Bruno Fernandes this coming week at Southampton. So at the moment, unless I walk into any issues, I think I'm not going to go into Manchester City or Jamie Vardy. It's not particularly that I don't want to. The priority for me was to fix the defensive issue, having got Nico Williams in. And I knew there was always a possibility that he wouldn't play. But then with Burnley's fixtures swinging quite badly now, including walking into Manchester City themselves this week, I didn't really want to be carrying two defensively when I'm also carrying Phil Foden, who's going to be a rotation risk every single game. But I can't sell him now that fixture swings happened. Having got to this point, I don't feel like I want to sell him now because he could play at the weekend and get me a double point haul. So prioritise getting City defensive. Of their next 6 home games, which is essentially what I'm going to be on before our wild card, they've got the 4 probably weakest attacks coming up against them. So to cover that off defensively felt like the right move for me at the moment. And that probably means Kane Son's going to stay. If I hadn't walked into the Trent and Pulisic problems before game week 9, I would have sold them both. I would have gone to cheap. I probably would have gone to Ollie Watkins, and I would have bought De Bruyne or Sterling. So when you say, "Oh, Nico Williams hasn't worked out for me," well, yeah, it has, because if I hadn't ended up with Nico Williams, I wouldn't have been in a position probably to then get Bruno Fernandes and stick the armband on him. So peaks and troughs, right?
Of course.
But this is going to be an eyes behind hands weekend, I think, for me from an FPL perspective.
Talk to me about your midfield. So Bruno Fernandes right now is your most expensive midfielder at 10.8 or whatever. You may have paid a couple of pips less. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
And so there are a handful of midfielders in that bracket above: De Bruyne, Sterling, Salah, Mane, and Aubameyang. Now, Aubameyang, no one's going near with a barge pole. Are you thinking now that you don't want one of the other 4, what we would call like premium power midfielders? Because I've got De Bruyne sitting there at 11.5, and I'm almost thinking that if I was to sack off the idea of having De Bruyne and go down to Bruno Fernandes, that frees me up 0.7. Suddenly, my move then is Zaha to Ziyech, for example, or someone a little better, maybe James. So it's one of those where I'm just thinking, do we need to have one of Salah, De Bruyne, one of the City or one of the Liverpool? Or do you think you'll go through this period when City have a number of good games intertwined with Liverpool having a number of good games against the emerging whipping boys without any of their attacking assets?
No, I'll be going in for the Fulham game.
Okay.
I think this is part of it as well, that Burnley have just kept back-to-back clean sheets. They're stingy. We spoke about this on our Patreon podcast yesterday about if City don't get an early goal this weekend against Burnley, that becomes frustrating. They are not playing with high enough tempo at the moment to have extreme confidence that they're going to go and smash someone apart. Plus, you've got the problem of knowing the team. So I feel like I can skip this week. I definitely want for Fulham. Now, Bruno Fernandes is probably going to be the sacrifice for me, which when I bought him last week, I'd said I really liked the two, the West Brom captaincy, and I like the Southampton fixture. And it obviously is going to probably be a fullback captaincy option for me. I don't mind selling him before he plays you. I think it's a very different fixture with you playing what will be a deeper back five against them and looking to spring on the counter-attack. Whereas Southampton will come out and swing punches at Manchester United. That's why I quite like the difference in the two fixtures. So I've still got Jimenez knocking about. So it would be Jimenez down and then Bruno to KDB or Sterling. That's probably my fault. And Jimenez down far enough that it allows me then to jump again to Salah the week after. Now, this is all in mind of, I'm not going to walk into any problems, which I am. And you can call me stupid, but I'm conscious of leaving enough money around and get Trent back in as well. I want to be able to go back to it if I can, if he's fit and available. I don't know what his status is at the moment, but they've got brilliant fixtures as well. Palace and West Brom before I would be wildcarding and stuff. Fulham in game week 12. These are like great fixtures for them. So I'm conscious of trying to get Liverpool and City what I want, but not forcing it. For me to get De Bruyne or Sterling this week, having prioritised City defensively as the most important thing for me, it would be a -8 now. And that would probably still include removing Bruno Fernandes. I just don't think that's right now. Or,
it's not
of course, I could remove Kane and Son. I think right now it would be Che Adams. I could probably go Jimenez to Che Adams, Son to KDB or Sterling and stick the armband on. Is that worth it for a -8? At the moment, I think it's not. And I think it's probably better that I make the right Manchester City decision before the Fulham fixture.
Okay. We're going to run down all of the games for you now, top to bottom, 10 games, a bit of a discussion on what happened, what we're thinking about FPL assets. And then if we get some time towards the end, we'll jump into some of the Twitter questions as well. Though I have had a read through the Twitter questions, James. There are a few that are different, a lot covering off some of the stuff that we will talk about during the fixtures.
Cool.
Before we go on.
No, cool.
Crack on, mate. Before we jump into the games, just a quick shout out for anybody that enjoys our content. Please subscribe to the podcast wherever you're listening, iTunes, SoundCloud, Stitcher, Spotify. If you're watching on YouTube, give everyone a wave, James. And make sure you subscribe and hit that notification bell there as well. If you need more content from us, then head over to patreon.com/planetfpl, where we release an additional podcast every single weekday for our patrons, including today they get Tottenham, James, a bit more of a look at how Tottenham is a show where we specialize in talking about Tottenham and West Ham, who obviously James and I support. We're winning at the moment, so it's not actually that fun a show, to be honest, for everybody. They only like tuning into that show when we're losing and we start ranting and raving.
Which is why we probably recommend for those who want to support us on Patreon, probably wait till next Tuesday on the 1st now.
Exactly, yeah. As well as quizzes and all that kind of stuff. So do head over there. If you are interested in supporting the show, it helps keep the lights on and keep us in microphones and everything else.
It doesn't help keep the lights on. For me, it does keep the lights on.
Yep. Let's talk about Newcastle 0, Chelsea 2. I watched the first half.
And you couldn't take any more.
Yeah, I honestly thought I'm going to... I was trying to figure out for the previous 8 game weeks, this is how dumb FPL makes us, whether or not I'd watched all the games when my captain had returned and hadn't returned. And I couldn't remember or figure it out or could be bothered to. So I thought, fuck it, I'm not going to watch the second half and Timo's going to return for me. But I saw what I needed to in the first half. I mean, Chelsea just dominated the ball dominated the ball and dominated the game. Newcastle were toothless, moving it from side to side, playing it down the channels. Chelsea are becoming that's 4 out of 5 clean sheets for their goalkeeper, who I think his name is pronounced Mondi, not Mendy, as the commentators keep telling me. So
I don't give a fuck. He's mending Chelsea's issues. I can tell you that.
He's done that. Oh, we're not going to do these dodgy puns, James.
What's that?
We're not. I heard a few dodgy ones for Leeds in the Leeds commentary. I wonder what's ailing him, and it just doesn't seem to be clicking at the moment. We're not doing these stupid player name puns.
Really?
No, we're not doing them.
What dodgy stream did you have on, mate?
The commentators were when they're talking about Luke Ayling. I wonder what's ailing him. You're like, come on, man, you can do better than that. And Click missed the shot. It's just not clicking. Come on, man, we can do better than that.
I can't think of any brilliant puns for Newcastle United at the moment, but it is worth saying they have an interesting 5 fixtures coming up now, which I think a lot of people had kind of earmarked for quite a while from match weeks 10 to 14. Palace, Villa, West Brom, Leeds, Fulham is not a bad run at all, actually. And there's certainly the potential for clean sheets, because then you've got Palace, West Brom, probably Palace without Zaha, West Brom and Fulham coming up in 3 of those 5. So Jamal Lewis at 4.3 might be an interesting one short term. It's quite cheap. You know what? It might only take 1 clean sheet or so, and you'll get a bit of value out of that as well, possibly. From an offensive point of view, I wouldn't go anywhere near them. I mean, it's worth saying, in terms of defensive, if anything sums up Newcastle so far this season, Cole Darlow's got 36 FPL points. The highest of any of their defenders is Fernandes on 15, and he just hit a -1, having scored an own goal at the weekend. So, if you're thinking St. Maximan Gamble, or if Callum Wilson's suddenly back fit, bin that shit. I mean, if you've got Callum Wilson, you held him through the weekend thinking he'd be available, then obviously it's fine for the next 5 if he's past fit or so. But otherwise, wouldn't go near them. I suspected they'd go to a 5-4-1 again, playing against better opposition. And do you know what? They had a few chances on the odd break. I think it was more through Chelsea's sloppiness than anything that was good from Newcastle. Chelsea should have had this game absolutely wrapped up. For Werner owners, I don't know how you haven't got serious returns out of there, because there's near misses that won't appear on your XGs, like the offside goal and the one he tried to lay it on a plate across the box for Ziyech. Yep. I mean, he should be going through and shooting there himself, really. So Werner, not to get the big haul at the weekend, will be disappointing for his owners. Chelsea, really good. I thought Mason Mount played really well again. Defensively look so much better now. What will be interesting for the Tottenham game is Lampard has a bit of a history for switching to a back 3 against big 6 opposition. And it might be the best way for them to win the game. However, if he switches when they're currently doing quite well at the moment with a back 4 and it backfires, then they'll be asking questions of him. Unfortunately, it's going to be a repetitive cycle for Frank Lampard. Damned if he does, damned if he doesn't. They're doing really well at the moment. They look the strongest squad currently in terms of the depth of trying to push and challenge for a title, because they can change systems. And you've got Havertz and Pulisic to come back into that team as well. So yep. Abraham, Mount...
And obviously Thiago Silva didn't play.
Exactly, yeah. And now obviously with no internationals to April or something, that's less of a problem. They're in a comfortable position in the Champions League. They're out of the League Cup, so they can manage Thiago Silva quite well. He might be interesting, actually. I think you'd still prepare to go to James Zuma or Chilwell, personally.
You don't own any Chelsea assets, do you?
No, I don't.
Why is that? Just not
because I haven't bought any of them.
But is that circumstance more than it is
now? I've just sold Pulisic. It's not a case that I didn't want any of them.
The one you bought just never played.
And I decided I didn't want to rush in for Ziyech when all I'd seen was Burnley, Sheffield United, and I knew it was probably going to block me for other things further down the line when I wanted to shift the money towards Bruno. I felt was a bigger priority personally. So, no, they're not far from my thoughts, right? I mean, look, they've got Leeds afterwards. Everton, Wolves away are not great fixtures. West Ham, Arsenal were London derbies, so whatever you think of those two sides, are unlikely to be high-scoring fixtures. I think it would be defensively if I was going to go in. But I'm probably in a position now where, because it's an imbalanced little run they've got coming up, I'm probably going to avoid them probably till my wild card now, I should think, actually.
Interesting. Timo Werner,
good assets, generally.
Timo Werner in the last 5 game weeks, who is now the same price as Son at 9.5 million, has only scored a couple of points less. And remember, he's a forward, not a midfielder. So
you've been all over Late Risers timeline, haven't you?
No, I just did the maths myself, actually. 39 versus 37.
So I'm just thinking, look, do the maths over the last 6. Do it properly.
Well, I don't know the game before. What did Son score the week before?
A lot more.
18, of course, yeah. But then you could go back to the start of the season, a 24 and an 18. If you tell me that Son's going to get double digits every other week, then I'll bite your hand off. But if we're going to think that Son at 9.5 million is good value points per million, then I think Werner's getting into that same bracket. And Werner's only just come into the league and warming up, and he's playing wide in off the left or whatever. If he pushes centrally when Havertz and Pulisic come back, I think he's going to get better, is my point, not any worse. That's why he's going to stick around for a little while, I think, for me.
Yeah, it'd be, a really difficult sell now. Tottenham and Leeds to come. But Chelsea historically have a very good record against Tottenham at Stamford Bridge. Tottenham have won there once since 1990. And Dele Alli scored 2 of the goals in that victory and presumably won't be involved at the weekend. So, you wouldn't sell a Chelsea asset now. What's that?
That's a fair presumption that Dele Alli won't be involved at the weekend.
Did you see his cricket catch, though?
No.
Oh, you need to get all over Twitter for that, mate. Or Insta or whatever other stupid social media platform exists that he might have posted on. But yeah, Dele Alli, England's cricket team, is probably his best chance to get in a game at the moment. Yeah, I personally wouldn't be buying Chelsea assets now unless it was defensively, is where I'm at. But you're not going to sell either. I don't think. If you've got Werner, I think you're holding. Unless it's obviously, I guess it's similarly to Kane and Son. If it opens up the door to Manchester City, it might be a move that people make.
Villa Brighton. Good result for Brighton, an away win, giving them a little bit of a cushion from the bottom 4 in the relegation zone. I think they're up to 9 points now, Brighton. So starting to pull away a little bit. All I thought during this game was, especially when Danny Welbeck scored, you'd be sick if you were a former Matt Ryan owner who transferred to Emi Martinez, wouldn't you?
Yes, this absolutely went through my mind during the game, especially the one bizarre incident where there was a free kick from out wide, and I think Tyrone Mings headed it, and it went high, and it kind of looked like it was going to land on top of the bar. And Ollie Watkins and Matt Ryan, they both bottled it, basically. It was like they looked at each other and went, I don't fancy this. I mean, Matt Ryan really bizarrely, because he can at least jump and use his hands.
Touch it, yeah.
I mean, yeah, it was really bizarre. And he ended up like flapping and volleying it away off the line. Really weird. I mean, Watkins, if he'd had a bit more bravery about him, dives in and scores. It was a bizarre little incident. But yeah, that was happening. And I thought, yeah, this is Sod's Law. Ryan's pulling out an 8 or 9 pointer here, isn't he? Just after I've obviously moved to Martinez and that, which became enforced. And yes, Ryan did outscore Martinez over the weekend, but I know which one I'm happier with in my team, by the way.
Yes, agreed.
I really enjoyed this game. It had a really good flow to it, actually. Could have gone either way. Draw probably would have been about right overall. And actually, it was interesting because in the first, before Brighton scored, which I think was about minute 12, Villa really squeezed Brighton in, and Brighton couldn't really get out. Wow, Villa were dominating here. They got over the blow of obviously Barkley doing his hamstring in minute 1, and the pressure territorially was all theirs. The problem was that they just got a little bit too excited about it, and suddenly they're in a position where Mings is the deepest player, and he's 70 yards from goal. And I have to say, when Welbeck went through, I didn't doubt it. He was going to score. He loves that little finish, and he was excellent, by the way. Really good, Danny Welbeck. Wasn't the only one. Tariq Lamptey was great at right wing back. Looked like he was going to get a monster haul because a lot of Brighton's attacking work was going through him. But he's one of them you reflect on afterwards. You think he's potentially looking at 8, 9, maybe even double points if this goes well for him here. And he's ending on a minus. Now, it's obviously affected by the red card. But then He does everything at 100 mile an hour on and off the ball. He shouldn't give Grealish. What's the chance? You go in on Grealish, it's going to go down. The chances are whether you win it or not, right? He's give the referee an opportunity to send him off, and he has to learn from that sort of thing. I just feel like with him, he's going to be one of them that always looks brilliant, but probably isn't going to be an FPL asset until he's playing for a team not called Brighton and Hove Albion. That's how it feels. They were better for having Lewis Dunk back, although he really struggled through the start of the game, but got better. And it wasn't all bad for Villa. Grealish obviously ended up in a central position, which is important to say. So when Grealish went off, originally they brought Bertrand Traore to play that position. Then they switched it, eventually putting Trezeguet to the left, Traore to the right.
Barkley, when Barkley went off.
Yeah, whoever I said is obviously incorrect. They went Trezeguet left, Traore right, and Grealish centrally after. But well, not straight away. But after about half hour of the game, that's what they did. And Grealish's involvement in the game wasn't what it has been of late. I think that the loss of Barkley is really bad for Grealish and Watkins. And I think it's really bad just simply saying that Barkley is a very good creative player as well. He basically complements Grealish. Grealish knows he's got a mate who he can trust and give the ball. And, you know, if he's got time and space, he can create opportunities or shoot from distance as well. So it's going to draw attention a lot more to Grealish. It'd be interesting to see if he plays left or central. He should play central against you, by the way. That I could make a whole other podcast out of that. But Villa might be better off putting him back out on the left and actually bringing someone like Hurahan in and pushing McGinn further forward.
It's going to be difficult. You obviously mentioned on the Patreon Q&A, I say obviously, you talked about how he hasn't really returned against teams, just Jack Grealish specifically, who play 5 at the back.
Yeah.
Now, I don't own Jack Grealish. I went to Ross Barkley, and you could argue that the Barkley to Grealish move now makes itself quite obvious for me. But looking at the fixtures coming up, West Ham sitting in deep with 5 at the back, plus 2 holding midfielders are going to suck out the space. What did Newcastle do? 5 at the back, suck out the space. Wolves, we know defensively, pound for pound, can go toe-to-toe with anyone.
Probably a 5 as well. We know Wolves played a 4 last night, but we'll come on to that. I don't think that'll stick.
Rare. Followed by Burnley. So the next 4, does that...
maybe it's not as good as it looks all of a sudden.
I'm not in a rush. I look on 40% ownership, and it just makes me not in a rush to go to Jack Grealish. I think even if I was to wait 4 or 5 game weeks, and then they got West Brom and Palace, but Chelsea, United, Tottenham. So it might even be in the new year that I go back to look at Jack Grealish, and his price may have come down. At 7.6 million, he's never going to put himself in a position where I can't get him, because he's not going to get to 9 million or 10 million.
No, I think
he might top out at 7.8, 7.9. So happy for him to keep rising.
I think the priority would have been last week, even though you've had the blank. Like if you were on wildcard last week, he was definitely going in your team.
Of course.
I think if I was wildcarding today, I would maybe go without, which could be a really big gamble with the fixtures coming up. I also think not in sell territory. Don't get me wrong. It's just something I noticed that his returns have obviously been against back 4s, and the next 3 games are likely to be against back 5s. And he's just lost his mate Barkley, who obviously had a major impact on what was going well for both him and Watkins as well. So from thinking, I wanted to work Watkins in the next couple of weeks, I'm probably looking at it now and going, I'll probably look towards Che Adams now. And I wouldn't be panicking to get Grealish in if you haven't got now. I don't think, doesn't feel like the right week. I'm not saying sell at all, because any time with him. And it's only last week I'm saying he's probably the best asset in the game at the moment because of his price.
Yeah.
So I think it's probably not buy, not sell.
Let's talk about Spurs 2, Manchester City 0. I'm sure many of the listeners are going to be excited to hear your thoughts on how well Spurs did, because it was a fantastic performance to really nullify City to the extent that you did. But the truth is, as much as they want to hear you talk about how good Spurs were, they want to know what to do with their City purchases more than anything else. And did that performance bode badly for the future of us thinking about diving in on City assets?
How long have I got? Restrict me.
A minute to talk about Spurs.
Okay.
We're done.
First, the question for you: do you think we deserve to win?
Oh yeah, there's no doubt about it.
Okay, why?
Football is about doing the basics right first, right? I think if I always say about West Ham, if you turn up and you work as hard as you can, and you give yourself organization and structure and a foundation, then the rest takes care of itself. And you did that. Like I would rather watch West Ham, which I have been doing, win games 1-0 in the last couple of weeks than 4-3. Because I know that organizationally and defensively we're set up and we're structured and it's a foundation to build on. We talked on a little bit about, are we getting to the point where we have to start trusting our teams? Because I see it week in, week out now from West Ham: defensive stability, then a little bit of passing and a system that they want to play. And you had a game plan and you executed it, and it was built on structure, organization, and defensive solidity, and everybody put in a shift. And if you do that, then yeah, you deserve to win. And if your other team can't then break you down, tough shit for them, basically.
Right, that's the minute up. Sorry, guys, no conclusion on what to do with Kane Son this week. It was probably go on.
Saturday night, for the first time ever, I made Korean fried chicken. Really tasty, and that's because Son scored. I thought I'm going to try my gochujang sauce. Yeah, so there we go.
Well, for the first time ever, after 8 or more games of a league season, Tottenham find themselves top of the league for the first time since January 1985. I'd have been just over
years.
1. So that's why I'm telling everyone that I'm top of the league, because it's not fucking August. And also, I don't expect it to last. I'm lording it while I can, knowing that every fixture we've got on paper looks rough, starting with Chelsea
the next
this week.
Couple of months is not easy.
This was probably, arguably, the best defensive display I've ever seen from a Tottenham team. Mourinho and the players who have obviously put it out into practice deserve mass credit for what they did. I haven't got long enough to go into the details of Højbjerg and Sissoko's positioning, the amount of blocks we had, etc. But it was really, really good. Mourinho particularly deserves mass credit, because that is the best way to attempt to beat Manchester City. I don't like it.
If people do want the full tactical rundown, then just head over
Tottenham.
to patreon.com/.
But maybe wait till December the 1st, guys. I didn't enjoy it from the aspect of I don't enjoy watching my team play that way. You can say you'd rather win 1-0. Sorry, mate, I'd rather win 4-3 personally. But the longer that game went on, the team and I think the support all grew in belief that, you know what, we can do this here. We can actually keep them out. There was a huge difference between this game and the game in February, which obviously finished by the same scoreline, where unbelievably how Manchester City didn't win that day in terms of the amount of big chances missed. Gundogan's missed penalty. There was another one put on a plate at 0-0 from Sterling that he's put over in front of an open goal. Several near misses in the first half. Tottenham that day got lucky. And then, of course, Zinchenko got sent off and Bergwijn scores a minute later, and then you're playing against 10 men, and City still dominated. This was different to that. Tottenham have grown massively since that game. Now, of course, importantly, you've had additions like Reguilon, Højbjerg. This is important. Solidity of now Dyer and Alderweireld at centre-half, although it looks like Toby's going to be out for quite a while. And obviously, Kane didn't play in that fixture then, he's now back. So, look good. And he, at the moment, Harry Kane, I mean, performance-wise, that's levels. That's almost upsetting when you look at that after and you think Harry Kane got 4 FPL points.
Yeah.
Like, it's not deserved on the base of performance
yeah.
of what you've just seen. So
was far better. But the thing with Harry Kane is the consistency now. He's returned in every single game week apart from game week 1. And he was underpriced at the start of the season at 10.5. I bought him at 10.8. I said in Tottenham, I actually do feel he's playing his all-round game. He's playing as well as he ever has in his career. Obviously, earlier he's been a bit more of an out-and-out striker with players in behind. When Eriksen's in behind, he hasn't had to drop deep as much. But his all-round game, he's doing everything from goal line clearances to through balls, 50, 60-yard passes. And the way that he was able to use his body to win fouls and relieve pressure when the ball came up to him as well was fantastic. So, credit to Kane. It does leave our FPL listeners in a quandary now with Son and Kane.
So
what do they do?
First thing, don't let anybody tell you that you have to sell them.
Are there people saying that?
Yes. And don't let anybody tell you that you have to keep them. Are there people saying that? Yes. So Tottenham have scored 21 Premier League goals this season. Of those 21, there's been 27 goal involvements between them of Kane and Son. There've only been 3 Premier League goals scored so far by Tottenham that haven't involved a direct contribution, i.e. goal or assist, from Kane or Son. The numbers are mad, genuinely.
It wouldn't surprise me, though, if there were periods last season where you could have said the same for Salah and Mane, for example, where the two of them, their goal involvement. The difference here is obviously with each other. I think Salah and Mane don't necessarily have the double involvement in the goals.
The difference is they don't both cost 12 million either.
Yeah, of course, there's a price differential. But I think what we're talking about here is when you have a team that has 2 top strikers, they're going to be involved in a lot of the goals. It happens to be that you can pick Son up at 9.5, which is a steal.
To flip that, there was quite a bit of theory in terms of, it was kind of well documented about Son having a very good record against Manchester City. Even like Johnny Pringle said on COTC last Thursday, our City correspondent, he said, I expect Son to return at the weekend. So there was a little bit of theory that, okay, yeah, jump off before Man City. But obviously, if you want to make the move to Man City, might as well hold for this fixture. And that's been proved correct. If you were stuck in the idea of, I want to get rid of these guys after Manchester City, because this is the real fixture swing right now, go ahead and do it. If you feel you're in a position that the value that Kane and Son offer is too good to move on, keep them. Because let me tell you what I've told you 100 times. Harry Kane will score a goal in any game at any time. And Son, in terms of his big game performances, those who've listened to me longest will know that I've said in the past, doesn't really turn up in big games. He scored against City again. He scored against United a few at Old Trafford. He scored against Arsenal during the restart. He is now beginning to do it in the big games. So the choice is yours. There isn't a right and wrong on this, in my opinion. I think if you can go, for example, Son to Sterling for a free transfer without it costing you hits, etc., you should probably pull the trigger, would be my opinion. If you're doing it for a -4 and you're sticking the armband on him, I'd say you're probably doing it. But you are going to have the nagging doubt of the value in the back of your mind. Particularly on Son, I would feel that you can go back, particularly. I think Kane a little bit more. If you move off Kane to City, you are moving the funds. You are going to find it more difficult to then go back again. So in an odd way, Kane, as I've said, probably for me would be the entry point for City, but it's probably the harder sell, in spite of the fact it's a lot of bloody money for a player you're probably not going to captain till game week 16.
That's the thing with your fixture run as it stands. There's other than Crystal Palace, maybe, but the difficulty with the Crystal Palace fixture is that City and Liverpool have better fixtures that day than Tottenham for captaincy. So you're not going to captain Harry Kane for a long time.
I'm almost definitely not selling because as well, I would rather sell Jimenez than Kane, partly as well. If I hadn't had the Trent Pulisic issue, as I said previously, Kane and Son would have both gone this week. And I probably wouldn't be sitting here regretting it right now because I'd be thinking, okay, fine, I've missed that one. But for me, wildcarding in game week 16, it's still a daunting run. It's not just Chelsea and Arsenal. It's Palace, who can be stingy, Liverpool, Leicester and Wolves. Those are the games that I'm holding Harry Kane on. The Fulham game's almost irrelevant to me in game week 16 because that's when I'm going to be wildcarding. So am I keeping Harry Kane because I've got the value in him? No, at the moment I'd be keeping Harry Kane because it's not my biggest priority fire. I don't think it's worth a -8 to get rid of him. And he can return in any game at any time. And if I don't end up going for Salah in game week 12, then he's a good fallback captaincy option.
Let's crack on with the games. We've got so many more to get through. United, West Brom. West Brom defensively were really good. United were not.
Were they?
I thought they were decent, but United were crap, basically. I didn't enjoy watching this game. Maybe I was tired at the end of a long day, but I couldn't get into this game. I didn't enjoy it.
Oh, imagine me. I've just finished us beating Man City and going top of the league. I mean, my interest in it was zero as well until the moment West Brom got a penalty, and then I was really, really interested because I wanted West Brom to win. Even when
I thought West Brom were decent defensively. I mean, they definitely put a shift in.
Even when Bruno missed the penalty, I laughed my head off. And actually, when it was, it's going to be retired, I was like, no, surely not. Although at least with this one, it was clear and obvious that he was quite far off the line. It wasn't like the De Gea one against Palace where it was like, oh, come on, just leave it. This one was clear and obvious. And if he'd saved it the second time, he would have got retaken again.
Because he was off his line again.
Yeah. So it didn't matter. I think he knew it as well. He's like, fuck, I've gone forward again. I might just let it go. That's the third time this season Johnson's made 6 or more saves in the game.
I thought he was good, Decent goalkeeper.
He's a good goalkeeper. The 2 saves from Martial and Rashford, in one in each half, were brilliant saves. So it's the moments like that make me go, did West Brom defend that quite well? Johnson 6 saves as well. United were not good, but if United win 3-0, we push it under the carpet if those 2 chances go in and go, well, that was routine. Thank you very much. See you next week. And that's kind of the point about Bruno, what we said at the start of the show about lucky or unlucky. So you can look at it and go, retake and penalty, which, by the way, I think that is handball, that particular one, by the way.
Yeah.
Because he's not in control of what he's doing. If he turned his back and kicked him at shin height, he'd get sent off instantly because he's not in control of what he's doing. And of course, he's not intentionally handled the ball, but he's turned his back and his hand comes up into a position which is liable to stop something dangerous. And the ball's travelled far enough, in my opinion. So I actually think it was right. The retaking of the penalty, you couldn't argue, was off his line. But he's gone from minus points to 11 times 2 for captainers. The flip is he's put 2 on an absolute plate for Martial and Rashford. And therefore, he should have another 6 points on top of that as well. So, as well, he's saying, Bruno owner's lucky. A little bit unlucky as well, by the way. I would go on the side of lucky a little bit, because there's every chance that this time last year that penalty wouldn't have been retaken, and he does end up on minus points. Yeah, it does go both ways, and I think this is a brilliant fixture for United coming up. At the moment, they're not as good as Southampton, but as I've said, Southampton are swing punches at them, and I think it could be a really good game, not just for Fernandes, but for Marcus Rashford particularly as well against Kyle Walker-Peters. Marcus Rashford, if you want to punt for this week, it would be a major differential captaincy choice, I think, this week. I think he could go off this week, Marcus Rashford. That said, I don't want any of what they've got afterwards, which is West Ham away and Manchester City at home. So I might fall into line of Bruno captain this week and then move. That's probably where I'm at. His consistency is so good, Bruno. You don't ever really want to be selling him.
No. West Brom, and I'm going to let Lee from FPL Family jump in here.
Is he on Zoom, is he?
No. Lee and Sam are adopted parents of ours because they are mum and dad. And
I don't think they'll appreciate that. They're
Lee's
quite
dad
young.
To me. Yeah, they are. Of course they are. But, they're more mature and sensible. So that's what you need to be a grown-up.
I don't know. I've had a few drinks with them.
Lee says on Twitter, would love to hear your thoughts on West Brom. If they're going to survive, next 3 are crucial. Probably need 6 or 7 points out of 9. Defending better, relative, I know. Is it total madness to consider them? Probably yes, but interested in your thoughts nonetheless. I think they are defending better, but why would you bother? Where would you go and what for? And
you go defensively. Sheffield United, Palace, Newcastle in the next 3 on paper doesn't get much better than that. You also need an exit strategy because it's Man City, Villa, Liverpool, Leeds, Arsenal after that, right? So, but the next 3, really interesting. I would not go anywhere near any of their attacking players. Even Grant, if you say, have Grant for those 3 games, I wouldn't take Grant up for those 3 games over Che Adams, for example, with difficult fixtures. No way.
So take me as an example.
The goalkeeper's decent.
Yeah, with Aaron Ramsdale sitting there, I need a 4.5 million goalkeeper. The only one that I can look to go to that gives me any confidence is Alex McCarthy. But Sam Johnston might be an alternative differential to go to potentially.
The problem with that is you go Sam Johnston, say you're on wildcard now. And I don't hate it, by the
No, but
way.
I'm not. Yeah, I'm not talking about wildcarding into him. I'm just talking about using one of my transfers.
I don't hate Johnson, particularly if you're going part of a rotation with two around about that price. But if he doesn't get your returns in the next three, you're going to feel like you lost straight away because you ain't going to want to play him in the games afterwards.
Well, he's going to get me more than flipping Aaron Ramsdale is.
So unfortunately, it's just void. But that game Saturday night, West Brom Sheffield United, wow. I suggest you get a couple of beers for that one. Not because it's going to be like premiere and game of the season, but because you might need it after a day's worth of football to get yourself through it. I imagine it's going to be quite a painful watch. It's going to be nervous watching for both sets of fans. Like literally neither can afford to lose. The loser is going to feel absolutely fucked, even for West Brom with those two games afterwards. And for Sheffield United, we'll get onto them shortly.
Fulham 2, Everton 3. I can't remember what did I predict a 3-3 or something in this? I did predict a high scoring draw.
I don't know, sweetheart. The patrons will tell you.
We have to look back, but I did think it was going to be a high scoring draw, and in the end, it wasn't far off. Dominic Calvert-Lewin's at nearly 60% ownership. Do I have to just pull the trigger and get him in now and be done with it?
Nah, I wouldn't get him now. No. In fact, I'm more looking to get rid.
Explain.
Well, Leeds at home next looks great. So not parts of my thoughts. But then if I'm looking to shove the funds the following week for City and I want to keep Kane, if that's what I decide, which probably if I come through this week, I'm probably at the point where I go, not yet with Arsenal and Palace next. And obviously Kane's very good record in London derbies just generally, right? So probably be holding on. So then if I'm moving Jimenez and Calvert-Lewin into sort of Che Adams and Antonio area, that's the kind of thing I'm part thinking at the moment. So definitely wouldn't be selling him before Leeds. Then after that, it's Burnley away. Now on paper, yes, but Burnley now, warning to Manchester City buyers as well, it's 2 clean sheets in a row for Burnley now. And once every year, Burnley suddenly go on a run of like 4 clean sheets in 5 or something. You go, where did that come from? I've missed that
Nick
completely.
Pope suddenly becomes the FPL
well,
legend.
He's Superman, like he was. I mean, that save at the death last night was absolutely brilliant. But yeah, I'm thinking more to move off Calvert-Lewin after this weekend. I think he'll probably end up staying for me for at least Burnley. But then they've got a tough run, right? Chelsea, Leicester, Arsenal, Sheffield United, Man City. And I think then yourselves afterwards. It's not a great run. I'd be thinking more to move. So, listen. Calvert-Lewin is not one you can suddenly look at, oh my God, Calvert-Lewin scored twice against Fulham. I better buy him. You're a week late, mate. And for most people, for me, I was about 6 weeks late. For you, it'd be about 10 weeks too late, mate.
Yeah, may as well skip that one now.
It's interesting the system they played. Really got really good for Luca Dean playing that system at left wing back. Iwobi was really good at right wing back. It didn't fix the problems defensively. The reason I think they played that system was 2 reasons. I think a lot of people thought it was to get James into more central areas and get Richarlison and James closer to Calvert-Lewin. I don't think that's been an issue for them anyway. I think there's 2 reasons why that's happened, and I don't know if it will stick. One is the issue, obviously, right back with Coleman getting injured again. So that solved the problem of not having to play Godfrey out of position at right back. It also gave Iwobi, who actually, when he hugs the touchline, is quite a dangerous player, rather than getting in front of goal, because he hasn't got the composure in front of goal. But one-on-one on the touchline, he can beat a man. Gave him impetus to feel like he was part of the team. And I think the bigger thing of all is Andre Gomez, Sigurdsson, whoever's played in that third midfield role hasn't been good enough for them. And Decore now, he's obviously fit enough. You've got to remember these guys didn't have pre-season to be able to really do the box-to-box work that complements Alan really well. Because Alan is a great sitter, good distributor, good tackler, pretty much as good as it gets when he's having a good day, Alan. And Decore box-to-box, he's an animal, right? As proven by obviously the goal that he scores as well. So actually playing one less in midfield didn't restrict Decore going forward. He was still allowed to go. Whether that sticks as a system, I'm not sure. But I think Ancelotti is probably one player short in the midfield area of what he really wants to do with it at the moment. Now, that might be that it's an attacking 10 or another central midfield player. It might even be that it's the return of Gabamin, who's getting close, actually. he feels like he's one player short at the moment. So he's kind of square pegs, round holes a little bit. But yeah, I quite liked the system. It worked. However, once obviously Fulham got the second, I mean, Everton just couldn't get out. It reminded me watching the game of watching Tottenham 15 years ago when we first started to play quite well under Martin Jol. We'd go away from home, we'd play well, we'd dominate a team, and we'd end up hanging on. It used to happen like every away game when we played someone weaker and got ahead. And this was no different, but it might be start of a process for Everton of progressing, actually. It was big for them to win because they'd obviously had a succession of bad results.
Any other FPL assets on your radar or not?
Yeah, whoever's taking penalties for Fulham, sweetheart. I mean,
maybe not.
Wow. I don't know how they're not playing Loftus. Get Loftus-Cheek in the team. Fuck's sake.
Yeah.
He's a good
I think
player.
he will be after that weekend. Let's see if he does get in.
If we were thinking that Fulham suddenly have been better defensively because of the recent results that they've had, which have been a bit better with Anderson in the team, obviously the West Brom nearly clean sheet at West Ham. Yeah, we've probably got that wrong, I'm afraid, guys. They're gonna keep swinging and probably have to outscore teams to get results. I think at least they've got a nice easy next three in Leicester, Manchester City, and Liverpool.
Of course, Sheffield United 0, West Ham 1 was the 2:00 game. Interesting game to watch. Obviously, as a fan, started out with I thought Sheffield United had the better of the early first 10 minutes. Baldock trying to get up and down the right-hand side a lot more, causing Masuaku some problems and pinning West Ham back. But as the game progressed, I think West Ham just grew into the game, got control of the ball, knocked it around much better, created opportunities. It ended up being a situation where I think if Antonio had been there as the striker instead of Haller, just his ability to hold the ball up better and create more opportunities would have caused Sheffield United a lot more problems than Haller was able to, albeit he scored a goal in the end. I think there was probably 2 or 3 occasions in the entire match where when the ball went into Haller, he found another West Ham player. Every other time it went to him, it just kind of bounced off or kind of like the guy's made of a concrete wall or something. He's obviously
Antonio made of, by the way.
Well, he's...
is he the whole mixer, is he?
Yeah, he's one of those mixer trucks, mate. Haller's, I don't know what to make of his goal celebration, but he's clearly not happy. I don't know. I was just thinking about this. There's quite a lot of footballers that you get that never seem happy. I think Jordan Pickford falls into this bracket as well. Always just a little bit angry with the world for some reason or other. You know, like just cheer up a little bit, mate. Just cheer up a little bit. You've scored 6-7 goals this season now. Relax.
Double any other West Ham player, but you just have to remember to put in brackets in all comps. In other words, yeah, there's been a few in the old Carabao.
He scored 4 or 5 in the Carabao Cup. So it's
to be honest, he's been like this for a while. Where when he scores, it's kind of no celebration thing, and I think it's the saying, "Yeah, I can hear." No, I think it's I can hear you giving me grief, etc. I'm going to stand here and
I've never seen the guy smile. I don't think I've seen the guy
Maybe if he'd have scored the chance from 6 yards straight afterwards, which was obviously a far easier chance, maybe he would have. Oh my God, I've got 2. Congratulations. He's not good enough, mate.
No, he's not.
Neither's your FPL goalkeeper.
Okay. Or he's not playing. It's either he's not good enough or he's not playing well enough. So he's getting a run of games now. Whether or not he starts improving and the confidence comes in, we shall see. But, you know, as soon as Antonio's fit, you know, Haller's going to get dropped. So it is what it is.
Yeah, no, and you can't argue that either.
No, of course not. From a defensive point of view, look, Flappy's been solid for so long.
Now the top scoring FPL keeper.
He is.
It's annoying me because I nearly bought him instead of Martinez, as you know.
I've been praising Soufal over Masuaku, and I still think Soufal over Masuaku. But Soufal's now had a price increase to 4.6. So if you are going in now, I think, and these are cheap players, just go with the 4.5 in Masuaku, because most weeks you're only going to get your clean sheet points.
I still think Masuaku's the best choice anyway.
I disagree. I think Soufal is. I mean, Soufal could have scored, right? He had a great opportunity. And in that instance, Ramsdale did make a pretty decent stop low down.
Was it not Masuaku's cross for Allaire from 6 yards out? I think maybe.
It might have been Fornals. I don't know.
Oh,
Anyway,
okay. They look the same anyway.
Let's talk about, look, from a West Ham point of view, if you're buying assets, I think you've got to look defensively, and you're looking at either of the fullbacks.
Are you mad? I'm just waiting for Antonio to get fit. Come on.
Well, yeah, of course. I mean, I already own him, and I've held him through his injury. So he's kind of almost a set and forget in the back of my mind in my squad there for me. At 6.2 million, Antonio is definitely worth a shout. Sheffield United, they're getting relegated. Unless they can find a way to score goals, they are getting relegated at the moment. And I talked about it with the Patreon pod. What I remember last year so often is Fleck and Lundstrom and stuff breaking forward beyond the strikers, getting into the box on the end of things. How many goals have their midfielders scored all season? I mean, they've only scored 4
How many fucking goals have they scored, mate?
4, James. 4 goals all season. So...
but Goldrick's got a few of them, hasn't he?
Yeah, exactly. And he scored, he had to wait like 3/4 of last season to get his first goal. I just feel like their strikers have never scored a lot of goals. They've never had anyone that's prolific from a striker point of view, but the goals have chipped in from elsewhere. They don't even look like the midfielders are going to contribute in any way, shape or form. And the way that Rice dominated the midfield, they couldn't get about them. It was so un-Sheffield United. Max Lowe is no Ender Stevens, unfortunately, so he doesn't give them on the left wing.
And more importantly, whoever's left-sided centre-back isn't Jack O'Connell, is more important as well.
And Aaron Ramsdale is no Dean Henderson.
He definitely isn't, mate.
It's a struggle here for Sheffield United. I feel it's a struggle.
Well, everything that looks like it might work for them tends to come through the right-hand side. And it was interesting. This felt different that they actually really targeted you direct. So quite often, obviously, with Sheffield United, they work overloads in the wide position, but it was direct diagonals going over Masuaku Cresswell early in the game.
Yeah.
And Baldock was really high, and they never worked that situation again after the first 10 minutes or so. It stopped. I don't know why.
I mean, when we got a hold of the ball, if Masuaku is pushing forward, then it does pull Baldock back. If they'd have been braver, maybe they'd have left him up there, but then you're allowing us to overload because our left side is stronger than our right side in Cresswell and Masuaku. Either can put in a decent ball.
I think they've got to change system now, Sheffield United. The problem that they've got is they haven't got any wide players. Their squad is built to play this system with back 3/back 5. They don't have anyone. If they suddenly went to a 4-2-3-1, for example, they don't have anybody who can play them wide positions. And I think you'd end up kind of having things like McGoldrick or Brewster playing out of position, or I could see Mousse going and playing out of position. I don't think that's necessarily the answer. But I think they're probably at the stage now that O'Connell's out for the season and it's monster miss for them. Monster miss. I think they need to think about playing system, but I don't think they will. No. They've got 1 point from 9. That's only happened twice before in the Premier League. To City in the 90s and Sheffield Wednesday in 99-2000. They both went down. That said, to give Blades fans a little bit of hope, in 1990-91, they went 16 games before their first win and finished 13th.
Interesting.
And the gap isn't big. That's the biggest plus for Sheffield United. Obviously, Burnley winning last night wasn't good news, but Burnley have got difficult fixtures coming up like Man City, Everton, Arsenal. You can keep them within reach. West Brom and Fulham don't like they could put 2 results together to get away. So actually, they're going to stay within a shot, but they need to get their act together. If they don't score goals, they won't stay up, unfortunately.
Only one Sheffield United asset that I'd recommend, and that would be Rian Brewster, because he's the only 4.5 million striker that's getting any minutes, and you're going to leave him third on your bench. But
Ampadu, he's reasonable for a rotation.
What price is he?
4.4.
Yeah, if you need a cheapie, but I think if you've got to find 4.5.
He played
Dallas, Ayling, Masuaku. There's a ton of 4.5 million defenders that are better. Matt Target.
I'm not convinced on that, actually. The thing is with Sheffield United, again, they never get battered. Yeah, listen, you're not going to get attacking returns from Ampadu, and even if he goes back into midfield position, which I suspect he probably will, by the way. But yeah, 4.4 rotation. I don't know if is there a Sheffield United Newcastle rotation? Oh, look, they both play West Bromwich Albion in the next 3. I don't know. It could be interesting if you're on a wild card.
Yeah, anybody that wants to do that. I mean, they haven't kept a clean sheet in 9, and I don't see where it's going to come from. Leeds 0, Arsenal 0. Leeds doing Leeds.
What does that mean?
Creating a ton of chances and attack, basically.
So, I mean, this was the most shots that any team's had in the Premier League so far this season without scoring. Leeds is 25. I think it was, 47 shots between them and Manchester City without scoring or so. I won't remind City fans of the stats of how many shots it's been over the last 3 games because it's Tuesday. I want you to have a good week, people. I was a bit disappointed with Leeds, and that's really difficult to say. As a promoted side who's had 25 shots on goal against an established Big Six member, probably should have won the game. I felt they weren't strong enough for the period directly after Pepe's sending off. I think Arsenal could smell that actually, particularly through Saka, that they could work opportunities on the counter-attack, which they did have the one great one, which Meslier did. Saka needed one more touch to go around Meslier, and he probably would have won the game for Arsenal, ironically, which wouldn't have been deserved. But I felt their tempo wasn't strong enough when Arsenal went and directly sat off them. In the first half, where the game was bigger, and Arsenal, I wouldn't say defended badly or particularly well, but they didn't make it the basketball match, which you obviously don't want against Leeds. But Leeds did work in some nice situations. When Arsenal went to 10, though, I didn't really feel like they were opening Arsenal. I feel like when a side like Arsenal goes down to 10 men, you should be throwing balls in the box for 5 minutes. And I know it's not really the principle of Leeds or many other teams. Just get the ball into wide areas, get them turned and get them frightened. And eventually you'll overwhelm them. Now, that said, Rafinha's hit the post, Bamford's hit the post. Gabriel's blocked one with his nuts, which was highly amusing. And Leeds probably should have won the game. But I just felt tempo-wise, that immediate period after Pepe wasn't good enough because Arsenal were there for the taking. Now, that might be Tottenham bias coming out in me thinking, go and finish these bastards, please. But I felt they could have done more, personally.
Are you looking at any Leeds assets on top of the defence? Do you own Ayling or Dallas?
Ayling, yeah.
Ayling. And I own Dallas. I think it's still much of a muchness. Are you thinking of, you've talked about Che Adams and Ollie Watkins. Is Bamford any higher up in your consideration? I mean, when they're creating
I would have ruled him out because he's having so many chances.
Yeah, that's what it boils down to as well with Bamford.
It's all right. He's had 2 on target in the first half. He's hit the post with the header in the second half. He's been unfortunate not to return here, actually. So I think with them as well, don't worry about the fixtures so much. I mean, it's kind of indifferent. The next few, Everton, Chelsea, West Ham, Newcastle, United, Burnley, West Brom. It's not the worst. I wouldn't mind anyone getting Bamford at all, actually, because he's going to be at the centre point of what they create generally. And I think, as Andy Martin said when we had him on COTC during the break, like he ain't going to come out the team now. No. Rodrigo will play in a deeper position or a wider position if he's going to play on that. So, Bamford, Antonio, Adams, Watkins. This is the point, right? You can shove the funds from Calvert-Lewin's, from Kane's, from Jimenez, from Werner's, and go with 3 of these guys, and then that gives you your route to a Sterling and Salah and Fernandes and maybe even Son and Grealish, for example. And that's probably the ideal solution. If I could say to anyone now, you can get that midfield 5 for free tomorrow and pick 3 of them up front, the majority will take that.
Liverpool 3, Leicester 0. I predicted a 4-2 to Leicester, but Liverpool have come and kept a clean sheet in this game, which I didn't expect at all, and could have scored 1 or 2 more. Robertson bossing the game as he does.
I just thought we spoke so much about Arsenal there that we just completely moved on, which I'm really pleased about.
Yeah.
No, it's good.
I'm conscious of time as well.
Since they beat Sheffield United in game week 4, they've scored 1 goal, a penalty.
Yeah, I'm not interested at all. Adam35, who follow Adam Pritchard, our Arsenal correspondent, did tweet, in the time since Arsenal have scored in open play, you could have watched all 3 Lord of the Rings films, and I just added director's cuts, because you get an extra half an hour on each of those bad boys.
Wolves not as good well. He's like, that's not the team you want to play when you're short on goals, honestly. Yeah, Liverpool really good. I don't know why people doubt them, personally. I think they're in a position in the next couple of weeks where they can rule City out of this title race if City slip up any further. Liverpool won't go away. I don't care what people think about the defensive issues. And they defended very differently in the end of this game, by the way, when Nico Williams came on. There was a concerted effort, quite unusually for Liverpool. We are keeping the clean sheet here. We're going to make sure this happens. And as a Robertson owner, I didn't actually really particularly doubt during the game, once it got into the second half, that it was going to come, actually. To be honest, I was counting the points of Robertson all the way through the second half, thinking, this is 12 points, this is 12 points. Don't look at the BPS, James, because it'll annoy you when you're wrong. But this is going to be 12 points. Jota is really interesting.
6.6 million.
I see a lot of people moving early, and I don't know why. He's a great asset, potentially. You've got a game of information to come. You've got Klopp screaming his head off about the fact they're playing 12:30 on Saturday. If Jota starts against Atalanta on Wednesday, I would be extremely nervous about owning Diogo Jota, particularly with Salah back available as well. And I just think it's not an early transfer move.
I get that it's not an early transfer move, but it is a transfer move. I think Jota
is. I see a lot of people moving Foden to Jota. I wouldn't consider that move for a second.
No, I wouldn't do Foden to Jota. But Jota is as acceptable a player to have in your team as Foden is, for example. Just as likely to be rotated as Foden and just as likely to return as Foden, in my opinion.
If it wasn't
and
for
just
the fixtures,
as likely to come off the bench and return.
Jota is obviously the better asset than Foden. And his person, Jota was great last night, on Sunday night. I thought it was terrific. But I would want to see that he wasn't playing against Atalanta before I even thought of buying him, actually. His price is so tempting. And of course, a little bit like what I've said with Foden, he can play the last 25 minutes, half hour, come on and score, even if it comes to that. Don't get me wrong. I just feel like it's not an early transfer move.
No,
and
just
on Liverpool generally, the same applies before that fixture against Fulham in game week 12. Now, at the moment, we don't know what time the kickoff's going to be or anything. But same thing. Like that week, everyone's going to be steaming into Salah. I don't think it will be a good idea to move early unless their Champions League qualifications already been secured. I think it could be dangerous. So we're all sitting there right now thinking, I'm going to captain Salah in game week 12. The majority of us are thinking that's the best choice. It's so blindingly obvious. Well, if we get there and he doesn't play, could we actually fall into, because they've had so many injury problems, the issues that we've had with Manchester City in the past with rotation, could they be about to happen with Liverpool? And I think we need to consider that as a possibility, whereas normally they don't too much. That front three normally plays. You've now got Jota, who's multifunctional, right? He can play right, left or up front. He's, in fact, of the four, he's the best at fitting into wherever you want him to fit into, and different systems, by the way. So suddenly predicting their lineup becomes more difficult as well in the easier fixtures, I would suggest. So I would just tread with a little bit of caution on Liverpool. But in terms of what's coming up, defensively, I'm extremely interested. As I've already said, if Trent's available soon, I would consider buying him. I wouldn't rule out Matip, because Matip's absolutely going to be locked now for Liverpool.
Yeah, agreed.
And I think that when you consider coming up between now and the end of this year, they've got to play Brighton, Fulham, Crystal Palace, West Brom, Newcastle. And the other two fixtures are Wolves and Tottenham at home. Tottenham who have an outstanding record against over the years, particularly at Anfield, obviously. And Wolves, listen, Wolves ain't going to go to Anfield and win 4-0, are they? Let's be honest.
No.
Wolves will probably score none or one. So those defensive fixtures coming up for Liverpool are absolutely brilliant. And I'm very conscious of possibly even, rather than prioritising Manchester City assets in game week 11, if I skip this week, that if I see Trent play between now and then, I might go that route instead. I really don't care. It's the consistency of them knowing it will come at the value. And it would also cover me the not worrying to have to get Salah for game week 12, because I think that is one I'd go, do you know what? If it comes to it, I'll captain Trent or Robertson.
Yep. Leicester. Jamie Vardy is being touted as one of the best captaincy options this week, and that's primarily because they're playing Fulham more than anything else. He either is on fire or he doesn't even get a sniff. If you go to cast your mind back to when they played us, he hardly had a sniff all game because he was just cut out. I think Leicester really are hit and miss at the moment. More often hit than miss, but if they are miss, then Vardy's out of the game. He's getting nothing.
It's felt like this. It was worth saying, obviously, on Vardy's returns this year, so many have been penalties. You have to remember that, and it's not to discount it in the same way we shouldn't discount it on the likes of Bruno and Harry Kane and others as well, right? Vardy, for me, is the best choice this week over the Manchester City assets because of the doubt and because Burnley are the opposition rather than Fulham. So I think he's the outstanding asset. What I have to weigh up is, do I think it's worth the -4 to go Harry Kane to Jamie Vardy and stick the armband on him?
Yep.
I think the answer to that's probably no, actually. I think it could... listen, in hindsight, it could pay great, right? But I think Vardy is the best choice this week, but I don't particularly want him what comes afterwards.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people would lose value in Harry Kane as well. So if you've got a daisy chain of transfers lined up to Vardy to then Jesus to then somewhere else to then somewhere else, then understandable, but know that you're not going back to Harry Kane.
When they played Brighton, which is the game after in the restart period, it was 0-0 and it was a dire watch. Leicester did not play well at all. Now, at that point, Vardy was going through a bit of a form issue, if you remember at the time, and the goals came for him after. I don't know. I'm not saying I can't sit in now and say I won't have Jamie Vardy come in the weekend, because I genuinely think he's the best choice for the armband this week because of the opposition. You can't look beyond it and thinking that, yes, Fulham could have the game like they had at West Ham and be quite defensive and cause issues. Or they could have the game like they had at Everton where they're a car crash in the first half and you think, my God, he'll get a haul here. The other thing that would slightly concern me in terms of going Vardy particularly is this now really is the time they shove system Leicester. And I don't like buying players when I don't know how a team's going to play. And I think with like Pereira's about to return, we don't think he'll make the Fulham game. This is the right time now for Leicester to shove their system. I don't know if they will. I don't like buying players when I don't know what they're going to do. But I think they should change system. You can't play 5-4-1 against Fulham.
No, that would be ridiculous.
You can make the same system work in the way that you did when you played them. We spoke about this.
Or whatever,
Go to 3-4-3, but you need to get Barnes and Maddison quite narrow and high. That system doesn't work for Maddison at the moment for me. No. You're not getting the best out of it. And it's obviously he's been injured. You're not getting the best out of a really creative talent and player. He needs, in my opinion, 3 players ahead of him, 3 different options. That system only allows him 2 in most cases.
Let's talk about the 2 Monday night games as well, James, before people switch off with our drivelling on. I didn't watch any games yesterday, James. I just needed a bit of time out.
You were the fucking lucky one. Can I have my 4 hours back?
Burnley 1, Crystal Palace 0. This was more of a Sky Fantasy Football headache than an FPL headache, because a lot of us were sitting there with Wilfried Zaha, who has now confirmed COVID. And I think it's made my jump off Wilfried Zaha quite easy. I've made a bit of money on him, a couple of pips. So I'm happy with that. But yeah, Burnley 2 back-to-back clean sheets. Are we going to read much into this, or are we saying that, look, their 3 clean sheets have been West Brom, Crystal Palace and Brighton?
Yeah, I think that's the bigger picture. They've got a tough run of fixtures. It was really important for them to get something here. And I mean win the game because of what's coming next. Chris Wood's trains finally started just in time for Manchester City away. I wouldn't go anywhere near their assets. I've said I've already sold Charlie Taylor. That decision wouldn't have been any different whether I'd known he was getting the clean sheet or not. I don't like what they've got coming up. I mean, between now and me wildcarding City, Everton, Arsenal, Villa, Wolves, Leeds, when I wildcard, by the way, Sheffield United and Fulham at home, I'll have strong eyes on Burnley again for my wildcard. But not at the moment. Wouldn't go anywhere near them, Burnley assets, in terms of buying. I wouldn't read too much into the 2 clean sheets. You ain't buying them before they play Man City anyway, let's be honest. No. Palace, do you know what their chances? Pope's save right at the end particularly was outstanding. And they could have got something out of the game. I thought Eze played well in the sense that when he got on the ball, it felt like he could make something happen. PVA was interesting from an offensive perspective, and look, he flirts with every FPL manager, PVA. But I wouldn't be looking at them either, personally. No interest. What are you going to do with Zaha?
I'm going to sell him. He's going to be out. He's going to be out on for Newcastle. Right?
It's the attraction of you missing the Newcastle game, but then you have still got West Brom to come afterwards.
Yeah, but then Tottenham, West Ham, Liverpool, Villa, Leicester. I'm going to get it done because he's inevitably going to get sold by a number of managers. So I'm going to lose some value on him. I can afford for him to go down 0.1 because I've made 0.5. It's an odd number, not an even number, if you know what I mean.
Has he gone up that much? 0.5?
I bought Wilfried Zaha. I'm going to tell you now. Transfers list view. I bought Wilfried Zaha at... Oh.
He's not going to tell us.
He's already out of my squad. That's what. There we go. I bought Wilf Zaha at 7.1, and he's 7.4. He has gone down already. He was at 7.5, so I made 0.2 on him. So yeah, I'm just going to bin him off. I may even go to Jota. I hadn't considered Jota as a potential replacement.
Don't do it early.
No, I'm not going to do it early. But I may do that and bank the money and use that money to take Barkley somewhere. But I've got 2 free transfers, so actually I'm going to be making 3 transfers this week, James. I just need to decide what my merry-go-round of players.
Free transfers.
Be. Yep. I'm going to take a -4, bro.
Interesting. Yes, look, 2 nice fixtures still to come for Palace. But no, not for me. And if you're a Mitchell owner, obviously if he's sitting there because of his value, it doesn't matter too much. But he is not getting back in that team ahead of PVA. And this idea of PVA moving to left midfield and Mitchell, it's not going to happen.
No,
Mitchell is going to play if PVA is unavailable, and I don't see it being any different to that.
Yep. Wolves 1, Southampton 1. I saw a tweet by the BBC, I think it was at half-time, and it said that Wolves have failed to score in 60 out of their 85 Premier League games so far in the first half. That is mental. We've talked about it before. Their fans may as well just turn up for the second halves.
I can make it worse for you. It's 34 of the last 47. So 34 first half since the start of last season, which is a percentage I think works out slightly worse than your one, mate. Yeah, listen.
Whatever it is, it's a lot. But
what time do Wolves kick off? 8 o'clock. All right, guys, see you at 2 minutes past 9. I mean, the fuck? They're so frustrating. They really, really are. Because it's like they need the shock to wake them up. Didn't play badly at all in the game. I think overall it was probably a fair result, a draw. Although obviously Walcott could have taken it away and made it 2-0. Overall it was probably a fair result. And then once they equalised, I'm sitting there as a Jimenez owner. I'm thinking, this guy, he's not doing anything for me. And then obviously he has the shot. It was a great shot. It's the post. He flukes the assist. Great. And then I'm sitting there, I'm thinking, within 2 minutes, I'm thinking, fucking hell, Jimenez is going to get me a double point haul here. Is he going to win this, Wolves? I don't know what it is. They have a major tempo issue. Now, a lot of it, in fairness, for last night might have been reflective of the fact they changed system, which I believe is the first time they've ever played a back 4 under Nuno, which includes the championship season that they came up as well, by the way. It's the first time they've ever done it. And I don't think we should read into it as permanent. I think we should read... I think it speaks volumes, the fact that he was without Cody and changed it, and that Cody's that important to him that he feels like he has to play with Cody dropping off in... I mean, Cody's the only player in the whole league that basically plays an out-and-out sweeper position in a back 3/5. So I think when Cody's back next week, and he should be, that they'll go back. They would be weaker with a back 4, I think, in the immediate. Certainly defensively, they would concede more goals just because it would be a change for them. But I tell you what, they'd be a lot better offensively if they could get Neto, Podence, Traore and Jimenez all on the pitch. They'd start scaring the life out of teams. And at the moment, they're just not. They're just not. You should worry. You should worry if you get to half time against Wolves and you're not winning because you know they'll get better. It happens so much. It almost feels like, and we've spoken about this before, it must be intentional in some way. It just happens too much. They just don't play well in the first half of games.
And from a Southampton point of view, we know Danny Ings is out for a while. Che Adams has been ticking along nicely.
He's doing great.
7 returns now in the last 8 or something like that, or 6 in the last 7, something like that. He's doing well. And at his price at 5.9 and a guaranteed starter, not that Watkins and Bamford and Antonio, when he's fit, are not, might be the differential. What do you think on their fixtures coming up? They've got Man United this week, but then Brighton, Sheffield United, Arsenal, then City, but then Fulham, West Ham. They've got a good run up until game week 16.
I think it's more the case that if Southampton get goals, and they will continue to do so, that he's going to have involvement. I think he's in and around
high goal involvement percentage.
Yeah, he's going to have a significant goal involvement. You said Southampton.
GI, let's call it GI. What's Che Adams' GI?
I don't know specifically without looking.
I'm gonna invent a new stat.
But I would guess that probably between now and Christmas period, or until Danny Ings gets back, I would imagine his goal involvement will probably be somewhere between 40 and 50%. I would guess. Which is value.
GI, please.
He's decent. GI.
Yeah, call it GI. I want to start a new trend of a new stat.
All right, Jane. To be honest, if I was moving Jimenez down to fund me a City for the -8, say Son to Sterling this week, for example, I'd be going to Che Adams.
Yeah.
That's the one I would be going to. I wouldn't be bothered that it's Manchester United next. I'd look at it and go Brighton, Sheffield United afterwards. Arsenal away, wouldn't hold major fears. City at home, didn't he score in that fixture last year from about 40 yards?
Mm-hmm.
And then Fulham for me before a potential game week 16 wildcard. And to be honest, at his value, a little bit like with Antonio when he's back and available, I'm really not bothered about the fixtures.
Yep.
I'm not looking for him to get 2s and 3s in a game. I'm looking for him to get me an attacking return a week on average, a 5-pointer or something. 4 to 5 points a week at his value is absolutely fine. And he's smashing that at the moment. You're talking more like 7.5. Yep. Over the last 5 game weeks or so. So he's doing great. Really good potential asset. He would be the priority if you wanted to go into Southampton.
That is the 10 games, James. We've been talking for 1 hour, 27 minutes, according to my timer. We like to keep it to 90, although we do get an extra 3 or 4 minutes out of it. I want to do something, James, as a test, which came out from our conversation about Spurs and City earlier. On Twitter, do you mind putting a poll out? Just simple question. Would you rather your team won ... 1-0 or 4-3? I'm just fascinated to see, obviously we're of differing opinions here, where maybe because I've seen my team concede so many goals over the years and be so rubbish, whether most fans would rather see their team win 1-0 or 4-3. And if you're listening to the pod and it's like in the first day or whatever, vote.
Well, I'll tell you what, right? As soon as we shut this down, I will tweet that. So, and I'll tweet it out with a 2-hour deadline, so nobody's influenced by what's been said on this podcast.
Okay, yeah, fair play. I would be interested to see. And there's no right or wrong, right? At the end of the day, if your team win, your team win. But just the consensus of fans. And also, I'm sure there's going to be bias based on who you support. Like teams that regularly keep clean sheets and score a lot of goals might go with 4-3.
Let me ask you something. In 2-3 years' time, what are you going to remember more? The Souček last-minute winner against Fulham or Lanzini's goal at Tottenham?
Definitely Lanzini's goal against Tottenham. But we didn't win that game. So,
there you go. So that's interesting. Would you rather a 1-0 or a 3-3? I would prefer the 1-0, but...
It's the circumstance of the game is quite different as well there. So
I think it depends a lot about in terms of what your expectations are of a football team. Like, to be honest, anybody who's sort of in and around mid-table who knows they're going to be safe from relegation and knows they're not going to challenge for the top 4 is going to say 4-3. Those who are probably right at the bottom or near the top of the league would probably, the efficiency of winning any game is probably more important. But you can't beat that 4-3 winner in the last minute, mate. We can't go so granular as to say when the goals are scored and what have you. But I'd just be interested in fans' opinions on football, because that's what we love at the end of the day. It's the beautiful game. Do you want to tell the listeners what they've got to look forward to the rest of this week as we get to do you know Christmas? What? I'm so glad you did that, because I was just about to start talking about the Etihad and the Amsterdam. So,
That's for another day.
What's coming up? So, Sky tomorrow, Thursday's clash of correspondence with FI_FPL, Addict123 and Adam Hopcroft 13, previewing West Ham and Villa ahead of their game on Monday night. Friday, I'm going to stream very early on Friday morning. I'll have a deadline stream just before deadline, which I have, 6:30 p.m. UK time. So I'll stream at 5:30 on Friday and in the morning. Patrons, plenty coming your way this week. Tottenham today, quiz tomorrow on Blackburn Rovers Premier League years, another Sky podcast on Thursday, game week 9 preview on Friday. Boom, let's go. Come you Spurs.
Rock and roll. I hope you enjoyed this review. As always, stay safe wherever you may be. Thanks for all of your support. Ciao for now.
Thanks, everyone. Be nice to each other. Cue music, please, man child.